Welcome back to the Start to Finish course on upgrading to .NET Core. We are currently in the module focused on the actual update of our application. And this lesson, we're going to convert our class library over to be a .NET standard class library. So let's first look at where we're starting from. So this is our solution. In here we have our 4 projects like you've seen. So we have the MVC user interface, we have the WinForm user interface, and we have the WPF user interface, as well as this tracker library, which is a class library. We're going to start by converting this class library over. Class libraries are fairly simple to convert over, so that's the first place we can start working on things. But before we get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the portability analyzer. Now, I want to do this to show you what it would see when we look at our project, but I'm going to show you how I don't really use it that much. Okay, so the portability analyzer is something that the .NET team came up with to try and tell you what's going to be a problem when you move to .NET Core 3. So we're going to run this portability analyzer, and it comes up and it says, hey, where do you want to run your analyzer against? Well, if we come back over here and look, I've got 3 folders here. I have the original project, that's what we're looking at right now, this project, and then I have the updated project, which is empty, and I have the portability analyzer. So we're going to run against this original project so we can have an understanding of what needs to be done. So let's take that URL and paste it right in here, or the file path. We're going to say analyze. And what this will do is it will look through our there's a few in here that are pretty, like this one right here. That's pretty low. So there's this whole list here, and you can look and say, okay, what are the things that we're going to need to tackle in order to make this 100% compatible? And you could get a little uptight and go through here and say, okay, you know, that's going to take care of the build.task.code analysis, which I'm not even sure where I use that, but we'll find out. And then you can go over to the details and look at these things and say, okay, here's all the things that are not supported. And if we look down here, output cache parameters, we've got build hosting, isolated storage, iRoute handler, and so on down the list. But here's what I found. This list can be overwhelming, and it might not actually be relevant, or it may be that there's solutions that are very easy to implement in order to bring this up to speed. So while this is very cool, and I really appreciate the team going through the process of building this to help us out, the fact is we're not going to use it. Okay? So you can use it if you'd like on your project, and it might give you some indications of, okay, here are the things you need to look at. For example, one of the things that we need to look at is Caliburn Micro is going to have some problems, but that's okay. So I'm going to close this out. I'm going to close this out. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to just start converting. And sometimes that's the easiest thing to do, because once you start converting, that's when the real problems will show their face, and you can address them or say, okay, we can't do the conversion fully. In our case, I don't think we'll have too much of a problem, but we will have some quirks along the way. So I'm going to close this out. This is the original. We're not going to touch the original. Instead, I'm going to bring this back over here. I'm going to copy everything in this original folder except the .vs. I don't need that. The .vs is settings for Visual Studio that are specific to my machine and my setup. You don't need to copy that. In fact, don't copy that from location to location. Those are for you specifically, and you don't want them traveling with you. All right, go to Updated. I'm going to paste this in here. So this is the project I'll actually work on once it gets pasted in here. And the reason I'm doing this full copy and paste is because I might mess something up. And if I do, I want to make sure that I have a good backup. And I can go to that backup and look at it and see, okay, what did this do that now my new system's not doing, and how can I make some tweaks? So I have the set in time it works project, and I don't have to go, oops, I deleted that. Let me go back and try and recreate it somehow. So make a full copy. Please don't just try and do an upgrade in place. All right, we're going to open up the tournament tracker. And this is now open, or it's opening. You can see we have our 4 projects here still. It does look like the tracker library is the startup project now. Notice it's in bold. Not a big deal. The other thing I want to do before we get started is in SQL Server Object Explorer, I do want to add my local database. So let's create a new query window here on my local database. LocalDB is file-based databases on your computer that allow you to quickly create a little SQL database. In this case, Tournament Tracker has this script, and if I open this up, and this is part of the download, I'm going to copy the whole thing, and I'm going to paste it into this window here. And what this will do is it will create for me a tournaments database on this server. So let's run this. Oops, did I have something highlighted? Let's run it again. There we go. If you have something highlighted and you run, then it's going to run just what you have highlighted, and that'd be a problem. But now if we refresh here, we'll see we have a tournaments database. We have a bunch of tables, we have a store procedures and all the rest. So that's now set up to use. I can close this out and don't save it. Now I have my database where I actually want to launch my application. So that's just kind of setup work. Let's now look at our tracker library itself. Okay, so we're going to upgrade just this tracker library right now. We don't have to upgrade the solution because of the fact the solution doesn't actually do anything except hold the different projects. There is no, it's agnostic as to what it's holding. It can hold .NET Core projects, .NET Standard projects, .NET Framework projects, no big deal. So we don't have to upgrade a solution. So just the projects need to get upgraded. In this case, we have a packages.config. And this packages.config identifies for us which things are installed with NuGet. We have Dapper, we have Twilio, and the rest, I believe, are just packages that Microsoft itself has. And notice these also target .NET 4.5.2, which is quite old. So with this, we need to upgrade to a new way of working with these packages. Instead of having it be in a separate packages.config, we need to right-click and we need to say migrate packages.config to package reference. And what that will do is it will put it right inside of our CS proj file. So let's do that. Let's migrate, and we'll hit OK. So the install.ps1 script we ignored when the package is installed after the migration for newtonsoft.json. That's not a problem. We hit OK. And now it has moved over to this new format where we've got it installed right in the CS proj file, not in a separate packages file. Now it gave me this little script here, or this little page here that says, here's what happened. It was successful, and here's the top level dependencies, which are Dapper and Twilio. These are the ones that we'll have to add in with the newer versions, hopefully, that support .NET Core or .NET Standard, actually. And there is an issue with newtonsoft.json, which is that install.ps1 script. But don't worry about that, because first of all, Newtonsoft is well beyond version 9, and it does support .NET Standard. So here's what we're going to do. Make a note of Dapper and Twilio. These are two packages that are not part of the standard Microsoft packages, and that we'll need to make sure are installed when we do the upgrade. So make a note of those. And now we can start working on this CS proj file. Now, if you could right click here, and if there's an edit somewhere in this list, edit CS proj, or if you clicked on it and something opened up on the left that was a XML type file, that'd mean you already upgraded your CS proj file, but we have not. We can't modify the CS proj file while it is loaded. So you have to right click and say unload project. Yes, let's save it. And now that it's unloaded, we can right click and say edit tracker library.cs proj. And this is our CS project file, which has got a lot of stuff in here. Guess we're going to do this file. Control A to highlight everything in here, backspace, delete it all. The CS proj file for class libraries is so much simpler, we don't need all that stuff. Now again, I could have made notes of everything that's in here. In fact, let's undo that for a minute and look. There is Dapper, there is Twilio. Those are the two packages I will need. And it does say, okay, here's the item groups for things that are included like system.core and all the rest. And then here's some more stuff like target framework. I don't need to worry about all this stuff as long as I remembered which packages I'll need to reinstall. Those are the two packages. I'm not going to copy these references. Some people say, well, copy those references and we'll paste them back in, modify it. No, just go to NuGet, right click and say add package for these packages. If it's a long list, maybe, but I wouldn't go there. So let's do our Control A again. We'll backspace to delete everything. And now we'll recreate or create over our CS proj file. So we're going to start off with a project. And the project type is SDK equals Microsoft.net, all caps, .SDK. That is the project. So you have an open and close tag here. And inside there, we're going to have property group. And inside there, we're going to have a target framework. And our target framework inside of the open and closing tags, between them, we're going to say Net Standard 2.0. Now, you may want to go to 2.1, that's fine, but we're going to stick with 2.0 for right now because I don't want to make too many breaking changes, and 2.1 kind of eliminates some of the bottom end stuff that might not be available to me or that I had used in the old project. So let's go with 2.0 for now. We can always upgrade it easily later. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to close that out. The other thing I'm going to do, let's go to my solution itself, right click and say open folder in File Explorer. And then in the tracker library, there's a properties folder. Inside there's assembly.info.cs. Let's delete that. Okay. Now we have those two things done. Let's right click on our tracker library and say reload project. And now notice it comes back up. So if I were to come down here, let's click on this file, for example, and then go back over to and click on tracker library, it actually shows me that CS proj file because I don't have to unload it anymore because it's a newer style. Also notice, let's compare it to, let's say, the MVC. WinForms is probably a better comparison. Instead of properties references, we have just dependencies. This is the newer style of library project. If we right click and go to properties, we will see that this is a .NET Standard 2.0 library. Now the one thing we don't have yet is we don't have Twilio installed or Dapper. So let's right click on our dependencies and say Manage NuGet Packages. Go to Browse. Now I have checked the including pre-release for DAP or for NuGet, and the reason why is because we're looking at .NET Core 3, which is technically not out yet as of the time of this recording. So include pre-release here because we're dealing the cutting edge right now. By the time you're watching this recording, it'll probably be out or very close to being out, and you might not have to use pre-release. But we're going to use pre-release. So I need Twilio, and that's the tool we use for SMS or texting in our application. And just latest version, and we hit install. And that will restore the package. We accept the terms, it will install. Don't worry about the errors right now. And the other one is Dapper. So we're going to install the latest version is 2.0.4, so let's install that. And that should be about it. So if we were to build the tracker library, we get a build failed here. And it says there's an annotations issue. So all the annotations are going to throw errors and all the rest. So technically, we have upgraded our library to the latest version, or to the version that is .NET Standard 2.0. We've now moved to something we can use in .NET Core. However, we've got a bunch of things to work through. In fact, our error list here says we have 65 errors. So 65 errors, 0 warnings, 0 messages. There's a lot of stuff that's broken. Now, fortunately, most of this stuff is repeated. So display attributes, there's a lot of these errors, 4 per property, and yet if we fix one, we'll fix them all. So we're going to do that in the next video. But if you didn't have any of these errors, you'd be done by now. Okay, so that's all we had to do in order to upgrade our class library to .NET Standard 2.0. So in the next lesson, we'll come back and we'll fix all these errors.